Just a few days before the start of the Denver Broncos training camp, and more bad news keeps coming out about one of our AFC West rivals, which is fantastic news for us as Denver Broncos fans. If you're new to this channel, I'm Ben. I'm a diehard Denver Broncos fan. If you like the Broncos too, helps me out a ton if you would like and subscribe, and let's dive in. I continue to be blown away and disgusted about the lack of coverage and hype that our team is getting, while other teams that really don't deserve it are getting accolades and being predicted to compete for divisions that truly they've taken massive steps back in. And one of those teams that really jumps out to me is the Los Angeles Chargers. Obviously, right off the bat, like that is a team that has no home fan base, moving from San Diego. I have yet to see an actual Chargers jersey anywhere in the wild. Just last week, I was walking around the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I've never seen somebody just wearing a Chargers jersey. Like, their fan base is so bad. We know a lot of Broncos country lives out in Los Angeles and goes to those games, and they're essentially a Broncos home game. They lost so many pieces, which we're going to break down here, and kind of some fallout from that. And yet, they are still predicted to win 8.5 games next year, according to most betting sites, right? So they're 8.5 games predicted. Meanwhile, here we are at the bottom of our division, which hasn't happened for a while, right? And we're predicted to win only 5.5 games next season, even though we swept the Chargers last year, and neither of those games were even close. And so let's go on to why it's been such a great offseason for us in Denver, based on how bad it has been with the Los Angeles Chargers. So the first big thing is that we know Justin Herbert's favorite target, his safety blanket, one of his best friends on the team, was Keenan Allen, who they gave away to the Chicago Bears for basically like a dirty sock, right? A 4th-round draft pick for one of the best wideouts in all of football. Last year, he accounted for almost 40% of Justin Herbert's completions. Like, imagine how upsetting that would be to a quarterback that you take away a dude who had almost half of his catches last year. And we just saw that offense was completely different with him out of it. And they even ran a story on Chargers website where they interviewed some people about it and how bummed out they are and still are about it. This was an interview that literally just happened. They asked Josh Palmer. Again, nobody knows who Josh Palmer is, but he's one of the Chargers' best receivers now, and that's not saying much. And he said, yeah, it was definitely hard for me having 2 of your best friends yanked away from you, but I know they're just a phone call away. It's sounds like a dad when his kids go to college and is sad about it. Like, that dad's life is over. Like, my dad doesn't have a life now that I've left home, right? He's watching, I'm sure. And then just saying, he's sad. We looked up to Keenan, and I looked up to Mike Williams. And so you take away Herbert's best options right there, and it is getting so desperate there that there is a legit article written about how the Chargers' only hope moving forward is actually a Hail Mary attempt to sign CeeDee Lamb or get him in a trade deal with the Dallas Cowboys. You know, CeeDee Lamb, the Cowboys have to pay Dak, CeeDee Lamb, and Micah Parsons, and there's just not enough money, and Jerry Jones has been kicking the can down the road, and now he's probably going to lose. He could lose all 3 of those dudes if he doesn't play his cards right. And so they're saying, hey, there are significant questions on the offensive side of the ball with Keenan Allen, his number 1 target, and Mike Williams, his number 2 target. We need to find a number 1 receiver. Let's go out and get CeeDee Lamb. But this article continues, that's going to be really hard because we're already giving so much money to Justin Herbert. And so it would be nearly impossible to be giving that kind of money to Herbert, to bring in a true number 1 wideout, to be paying Bosa, to be paying Mac. And so the Chargers are in a very bad predicament in that they don't have those 2 options. And it gets even worse here that really all of their hope is in Quinton Johnson, who they drafted last year. This would have been back in, it says it right here, the 2023 draft. He was their 1st-round draft pick, and he was by far the worst rookie out of those 4 taken in that little stretch of a bunch of rookie receivers going with Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison, and who else? There's one more on there. Jackson Smith and Jigba, right? And so they're going through and saying, hey, the really concerning thing was if Quinton Johnson was to actually pop last year, he would have done it after Mike Williams tore his ACL and he had all those snaps. And so they're basically saying there's a ton of pressure on Quinton Johnson's shoulders. He never established any rapport last year with Justin Herbert. And so to think that like something's just going to happen now with a brand new coach and a brand new offense coming in there, I think that is a very, very unlikely situation, which is why you see all of these crazy articles being written about all these Hail Marys that the Chargers have to do, including taking a flyer on Sean Payton's former slant god, Michael Thomas. And again, you're talking about a guy who is probably way past his prime, or he would have come here. Like, he is still a free agent out there. And I think if anyone thought he still had some air left in those tires, it would have been Sean Payton to bring him in. Last thing that I don't think anyone is really talking about is everyone's talking about how the Chargers really like have this brand new offensive line that's going to be beast because they went out and signed Joe Alt, or they went out and drafted Joe Alt with the 5th overall draft pick last year. But the thing that they're not talking about is that last year they also lost a center who was better than Lloyd Cushenberry. So everyone is talking about, oh, the Broncos, they let Cushenberry go. They're in big trouble now. Well, last year, or this offseason, Cory Lindley, who is a higher graded center on Pro Football Focus for most of his years in the NFL over Lloyd Cushenberry, retired. So they lose a center, and then they lose his 2 top targets, and then they lose the bell cow carrier in Austin Eckler. And so I just think that is a fantastic thing for the Denver Broncos. Anytime one of our rivals gets worse, that is good for us. The scary thing about the Chargers would be facing them before we truly have a read on what type of offense and scheme Harbaugh is going to run. And the good part is we don't play Chargers early, and so there will be plenty of tape on Harbaugh and what he's running, and we'll get that tape, and I trust Sean Payton to analyze that tape and find out exactly how to beat this team twice, just like he did last year. And I think one of the things, and yeah, just article after article after article about how the Chargers need to go out and get wide receivers. You look at our wide receiver core, and we are having a hard time figuring out how are we going to only choose 5 of these dudes when we have Mims, we got Reynolds, we got Cortland, we got Vele, we got Tim Patrick. Like, we're at 5 right there, and we haven't even talked about Brandon Johnson. We haven't even talked about Virgil coming back from his injury. So we have a loaded wide receiver room where Herbert and the Chargers absolutely do not. The other thing that I think folks are sleeping on is how good our center room or our safety room truly is. And we're seeing some great articles coming out there just about how good our secondary is going to be, because we have really, really high ceiling safeties. It was hard to move on from Justin Simmons, although he is still a free agent for a reason. And so we have a plethora of guys who I think are going to fill in very, very nicely for that. Obviously, we saw PJ Locke last year, and just like he had a stretch in there where, I mean, here's Justin Herbert right there blowing up Herbert. His ability to come in on some blitzes was incredible. His ability to play coverage as well. Man, there he is getting after the rocket arm right there. But yeah, his ability in coverage was incredible. He had a couple game-saving plays in the secondary, actually playing like a typical safety. This started our whole run with picking off Jordan Love right there. And so we have PJ Locke, a lot of high hopes on him. We have JL Skinner, who is going to be healthy and back at it. And his time at Boise, it just reminds me of watching Brian Dawkins tape. Like, he is a hard-hitting safety. Very, very high on him. Very high on Caden Stearns. And then obviously Brandon Jones, who the Miami Dolphins didn't want to let go, and we got him here. So I think in an era when the Los Angeles Chargers are losing all of their talent, we have a plethora of safeties. We have some great cornerbacks who we're going to be breaking down in future videos, and I think the sky is truly the limit here for your Denver Broncos, and there's a lot to believe in. One more.